Skinner. Absolute Radio.
Guten Morgen, this is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio, and I'm with Emily Dean, and I'm with Laura Solon. One boy. Everybody. Two little girls. Oh, and if you want to text us about anything, we're on 8, 12, 15, as ever. Did I tell you I tried to remember that the other week and couldn't
What, 8,
remember
12,
it?
15?
I tried to just remember it when I wasn't in the radio room, I was going to call it. I like to think of this as a radio room, like why some people have a utility room. This is my radio room. There are no white goods in here.
It's like the high dependency unit.
Well,
in many ways.
I'm not going into there. And didn't you used to have a loyalty card then?
Right back at you, my friend.
Oh dear, it's nothing like a slightly sordid past. I don't know these people manage. They've just lived a good life. It's terrible. Apart from Richard Bryars, of course, who did live a good life.
Yeah,
he's a very lovable man. As winter kicks in, I think it's fair to say, I've. Let me tell you, something has changed in my life, which is something I've fought and been proper anti for many years, is I've started wearing socks in bed.
Embrace it. I've been doing it for ages.
Yeah, but I've always thought, occasionally I've thought it's really cold, I'm going to leave my socks. In the middle of the night, I think, I'm in the grip of my socks. And I felt really restrained and horrible. And it always worries me, because I don't have a specific bed sock. I leave on the socks I've had on all day.
I was going to ask you, Frank, are we talking hand-knitted Peruvian or silky Bruce Forsyth?
No, I'm talking about whatever I'm wearing that day. I just leave them on.
Off an airplane.
Yeah, but the problem is with that is I think that my body, because I've still got my what I would call my street socks on, my body thinks I'm still operational. So I'm often waking up, in case, like I might be crossing a road or something.
Is it like a policeman going to sleep with their gun?
Is that what they do?
Well, in the movies, the American police sometimes sleep with the gun by
their bed.
There was
rumours that Geoffrey Boycott, the cricketer, used to sleep with his cricket bat.
Under his pillow, or just...
I think in a fond embrace.
Yeah.
I have my Stuart Broad bat near my bedroom.
Yeah, but that's quite small, isn't it, there?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with varying sizes.
You couldn't bat with it. Isn't it like isn't it an
No, it's a proper
miniature.
bat.
Oh, it's a proper bat.
Yes.
I thought it was an ornamental.
Is that as a security measure?
No, it's as a trophy.
A trophy.
But the brilliant thing is, if you did take a burglar to pieces with that cricket bat, you could say, "Well, I had it on display. It wasn't set up as a weapon." That would be fine. You'd be fine with that.
Loopholes. So, Frank, what does Kath make of this? Because
she doesn't even. The thing is, Kath started going to bed about 9:30 at night. So when I get in, I can't even put the light on. So I don't know if she's even noticed the socks thing.
I think the socks are a low-level contraceptive, aren't they? If you wear socks in bed.
Well, it depends where you wear them, I suppose. I wouldn't trust them completely, 100%. Can I say to our listeners, we're not saying that is an effective method. Maybe if you combine them with one of those waterproof boots, what the pensioners used to put over their everyday shoes.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know about you. I don't like a contraceptive with buttons. That's what Cinderella said to me, anyway.
But Frank, I do sympathise. I feel the cold very deeply. Very deeply.
Do you?
I have been known to sleep in a toweling bathrobe.
Oh no, I hate that.
I've been known to do that. If you're cold at night, you can't sleep.
Sometimes the tracksuit bottom and top.
Yeah.
I don't like. I've tried sleep in hotels, because hotels are horribly cold, and always, as I've said before on here, the duvets in hotels are a public disgrace.
Scratchy.
Yeah, they talk about broken Britain, but they never mention the duvets in hotels. They're absolute rubbish.
One of the causes of the riots.
They're so light that often I've had to tether them just to keep them on the bed. They will float like smoke across the room.
Duvets like Gulliver.
Yeah, and so I have slept in the robe in a hotel, but I don't like that. There's the knot of the belt. And it's coarse against the skin.
Yeah,
that level of toweling.
Not fluffy.
Yeah,
and then it gets hot.
And I don't know if you've ever had logo nipple. But often the embroidered logo on a robe, at the back of that, will take the end off a nipple. I warn anyone, if you're ever thinking of running the London Marathon, don't do it in a hotel robe. It's that kind of advice that makes this show not only comical, but also valuable.
Absolute Radio. Frank Skinner.
I was just talking about the whole bed sock thing. I think something else I've noticed, which is great about a bed sock, they don't turn on you the way a hot water bottle does.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you can talk about Kath there.
No, but you get to bed with a lovely... Actually, a hot water bottle over the course of the evening is not unlike a long-term relationship. It's lovely. It's hot at first.
Yeah,
it's too hot to cope with. And then it gets kind of warm and snuggly, and then you relax into it. You wake up in the night, it's like ice. And then it has to be kicked out of bed. It's as simple as that. Now,
Lovely.
Yeah. Socks don't do that. Socks, they're consistent.
Yeah, they keep you warm.
They stay there. OK, I'm getting those red lines around my calves and not really going away because all I'm doing is replacing them with another sock line. So it might be a little higher or a little lower. Occasionally I'll wear a woolen knee sock.
Dude, that's why you never see paid swing girls in a sock.
Yeah, if I'm doing a swinging 60s photo shoot, I'll wear a knee sock. I'm not ashamed to say that.
Whilst about to kick a football.
Yeah, exactly. I've told you that I do that in bed. Is when I roll over in bed, I imagine that I'm receiving a pass down the wing, and I turn to beat the defender. I turn to receive the ball, and then I roll over as if I've.
Well, according to 811, Morning All aesthetically challenged footballer Peter Beardsley famously always slept with a football under his pillow.
That
Under
doesn't
his
sound
pillow?
I don't
comfortable.
believe that.
No, that was his head. I don't think you could sleep with one under your pillow, could you? I think you could certainly sleep with a football. I've slept with people of a not dissimilar shape to a large medicine ball, and loved it. Can I say that?
You see, Frank, I'm not a big fan of the male foot in general.
No.
Feet in general are not attractive.
No, I like a lady foot.
Okay.
But I just don't think the male foot works. It's not very it's not very aesthetically pleasing.
I don't like the upper thatching on the toes.
No.
No, I don't really have that much though. In fact, I think all the hair is leaving my body, starting at the feet. I'm having that sort of Duncan Goodhue thing. I didn't fall out of a tree.
Maybe
he fell out of a tree and all his hair fell out.
Yeah.
In case you don't know, Duncan Goodhue used to be a famous swimmer, completely hairless.
Do you think the hair on your feet is like watercress, and because you're keeping them in the dark, away from the sunlight, they're not growing?
That's
With the sock at
a
night,
thought. Yeah,
and it's just dying out.
that is a thought. I'm happy with that as something to think about. What I've done on a couple of nights is I've changed into clean socks to sleeping because I thought the street
Fresh
socks,
socks,
is it right?
yeah.
But I always go for white.
Street socks.
I go for white socks if I'm putting them on, especially for bed.
Sports sock.
Yes, yeah.
That was very too ladies the way you said that. A sports sock.
We've categorised socks.
I'm going, well, to be specific, I'm going for a white ankle.
Is it a trainer sock, or does it come
No,
up to
no,
the
I don't think that would give me enough warmth. I'm worried about that. No, as the winter gets colder, I might just sleep in trainers. I mean, why don't people do that?
Oh, I don't like
You're
that.
going to wash the sheets anyway.
It's a bit burglar, always on the run.
Yeah, you're quite right. It's how I imagine the guy from One Direction sleeps with Caroline Flack. As if some sense that her husband could, even though she's not married, just at that age, you must think that surely a grown-up will come and shout at me in a minute. I believe the One Direction fans refer to her as that grown-up. Oh, they can be bitter, I'll tell you that.
Absolute Radio with Frank Skinner.
Frank, I'd like to talk to you about a story which, well, I rather like this, which shows me in quite a bad light. It was about school children getting a little bit upset. It made me laugh, I'm sorry. There were these kids in Cambridgeshire, and basically the school had decided, they were primary school kids, the school had decided to take them on a trip to see local wildlife, or so you would think. Yeah. It turned out to be a wildfowlers trip. So it was essentially they went to see ducks being blasted out of the sky.
Oh, okay.
And shot. And
Life lesson.
Yeah.
Where was it? You sure it wasn't the Duchess of Cambridge? Hasn't she taken to the gun
Yeah.
now? They all have to take to
They
the
have
gun.
to take to the gun on Boxing Day, I think.
I think if you join the royal family, you have to be prepared to spread some feathers, as it were. Yeah. Well, these kids, so they saw a duck shoot.
Yeah, and they were all crying.
Oh,
and
well, I would have. I'd be
Parents
upset.
complained.
Was it just that the fair didn't turn up, so they had to do it live?
Well, no, the headmistress said,
So they have to go up and down on a little conveyor belt.
And they have to hook them out of the water.
And you want a real bear.
Maybe it was really posh kids being traumatised by the fair. The
Yeah.
headmistress, Shirley Stapleton, doesn't have an age. Normally the Daily Mail has an age.
Yeah.
Shirley Stapleton,
I wouldn't
43.
want an headmistress with initials like that. Go on, carry on.
She said it was an annual trip which helps pupils make informed decisions about country pursuits.
She also said it was rural and normal, as if there's an option where it's rural.
I must say,
Not.
that's a Venn diagram where the two circles only just
There's no
overlap.
Venn. There's no Venn.
Yeah. Well, that's
I
that's
say,
awful.
lighten up, kids. No, we had to do some awful things. We went to
school trips were the worst.
Hereford Livestock Auction was one of my favourites.
What did you learn from that?
I don't know, but clearly a proper trip had fallen through, don't you think?
Disneyland, Florida was too expensive.
But let's have something animal themed. Cattle market, that'll do.
Let's go buy a bull.
A coach load of 8-year-olds to Hereford Livestock Auction.
I suppose it gets you used to the nightclub lifestyle that you're heading for in your late teens. I went to the Three Counties show, which was a very similar thing to that.
What's that?
It's in Evesham, is it?
Yes.
The Three Counties. I remember just picture this. There's about me and about 5 mates, and we're about 14, right? 14-year-old
cider.
schoolboys, and we're just wandering about in our blazers, and we go past a goat, and it breaks wind with such recklessness that it actually jolts forward. And imagine how long we laughed about that. You can put together all your Fawlty Towers and Woody Allens and Laurel and Hardys and mix them all into, and you will not recreate how funny that is to a 14-year-old. But it was magnificent, absolutely magnificent.
They always said then they have that parade of steam tractors and steam farm vehicles at some of those shows, and then someone's on one of those megaphones, you can't hear what they're saying, and people just drive out in these vehicles, and it takes about 3 hours for them to do a circuit.
I think there was police dogs as well, if I remember right.
Oh, jumping through fiery hoops.
Oh, I love it when they do that.
Oh,
I think there were 7 of them on a motorbike at one point.
What does that train them for, the fiery hoops?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you could say, how many burglars do you get who have a very, very padded forearm?
it trains them for working with Siegfried and Roy. It's really the only thing it trains them for.
Yeah, well, let's face it, you don't want to go into that untrained. A lot of our trips at school were themed on the ill treatment of Catholics in England. Yeah, because we went to a Catholic school.
Oh, yeah.
We often went to a place called Harvington Hall, and we used to have to go into the priest hidey holes where they had to hide during the Reformation. And you'd sit in there with your chin on your knees, thinking about Catholic oppression through the ages. That was the idea of it. And then
It wasn't a worksheet you had to fill in.
No, I think there was a gift shop.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm going to take Hereford Livestock Auction and stick with it.
No, well, that sounds like a good one. They were a very special. I never did any of the big skiing ones or any of those things that some people do.
Just the ones on the coach. I hated the coach. It's the worst part of a school trip is having to sit on the coach. Because if they put your packed lunches in the coach luggage bit, they taste of diesel fumes when you get them out.
Is that right?
Yep.
And there was always the 2 you had to wait for as well. Alex Fruin, he was always late.
I think one of the great highlights, I think second only to the goat, was when we went to Ironbridge and Stephen Healy fell in thistles. No, there weren't thistles. There was no stingers where at first you thought, has he been stung? And then these white lumps start. And he was very long lad, Stephen Healy. So they disappeared into the distance, his stings. Oh, it was great. The noise that he made was so wonderful, because it was quite a breathy, I remember. So, less of a scream than a man who was suffering not only physically but mentally. I'd love to know if our listeners have had any nightmarish school trips. I bet they have.
Absolute Radio with Frank Skinner.
I think we've had messages from the outside world on 8, 12, 15.
We have. We were talking about nightmare school trips. I had Hereford Livestock Auction. You, Frank,
I had Harvington Hall with the priest hidey holes.
Our listeners have had, 690, morning, I, along with about 60 other kids, was taken to a sewage farm.
Oh.
Then the same day in the afternoon, we went to Snaresbrook Crown Court to watch a murder trial. I was 11.
That can't be right.
What are you learning from those two?
I think they were doing a project on filth in all its manifestations. I didn't think you'd be allowed into a murder trial if you were under 18.
There's one from...
Do they have certificates, trials?
Snaresbrook. There's one from 70119. Frank and Ladies Nightmare School Trips. My son was recently taken to the local carpet shop for a trip.
No.
No idea why. From Jules in Colchester.
Oh.
Imagine their little faces when they realise there's no gift shop. It's just carpet.
You could get a bit of carpet for
get a sample.
for your room.
Bit of brown carpet.
Is that because of the credit crunch that they're now going to carpet shops instead of skiing? Is that what's happened?
The ski trip's off, but don't worry, we've got the second best thing.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but it's never après carpet. It's never nothing I look forward to. You just get those red marks on your elbows.
I always thought it was a bad idea to take children en masse to sort of Shakespeare plays.
Oh.
Why do they do that? We went to see Romeo and Juliet.
You just get so bored.
Someone said cheers when Juliet took the poison and we all had to leave. We got in trouble.
Well, we were taken... I remember Mr. Wilcoxon took us to see Roman Polanski's Macbeth, which had got a lot of topless witches and the like.
How dare you?
And we was a lots of jeering and calling out of remarks. And I remember I've never seen such an impassioned telling off of what we got when we got back to the school. It was, you've disgraced yourself.
Yourselves
I think he said that we disgraced British literary culture.
That's quite an achievement.
No, that was Andy McNabb who did that.
I think it was him.
We had to go see Macbeth that starred a man who'd recently been in Casualty. This must have been about 15 years ago, as in the show, he hadn't been doing it. And I couldn't lose myself in the play because Macbeth was the doctor from Casualty.
Yes, it's always a problem.
Awful.
I remember I went to see a play about the Triumph factory in Coventry. One of those... In the 80s, they did lots of plays that was about local industry.
Yeah.
And... the kids were sort of, laughing and wee and all that, and this actor just stopped and he turned and he just stared. He stared them down. It was a fabulous moment in many ways, and quietened them for nearly 20 seconds. I don't know.
The power of actors to discipline children. Not talking of that subject, have you read this story about the Lothian and Borders Police and their £70,000 contract? For sandwiches.
Oh, this is the 11-inch baguette.
Yes, the 11-inch baguette, or baton, as I thought they might call it.
Yeah, I suppose that's why they've gone for 11, because it is reassuringly like a baton.
And that is long. 11 inches.
Yeah.
That is long.
I'm just trying... That's long for a baguette.
It's nearly a foot.
You know what's going to be wrong with that baguette? It's going to be one of the filling's going to be about 9 inches, and you're going to get that horrible dry ending on a baguette.
Because they stipulate that the fillings have to comply with the standard size and weight stipulated by the British Sandwich Association. I've been on the British Sandwich Association's website.
Have you?
They are an industry body to fear.
Are they a quango?
Well, they keep themselves busy by promoting the consumption of sandwiches.
Oh.
Do they really?
Doesn't Britain's fattest man do that?
Were they set up as a sort of one of these...
For the British sandwich
socialist move?
Well, it's just to support the British sandwich industry and make sure we've got the right fillings and the right quantity of fillings in our batons.
I think that's all right. I don't mind that.
What have they insisted on then? What fillings do they want?
Well, they want 17. They had a spreadsheet. This is they wrote a 10,000-word document.
The sandwich spreadsheet.
Yeah, and it was a spreadsheet. Yeah, 17 different fillings. The police wanted brie and cranberry, smoked salmon and cream cheese, and prawn mayonnaise.
I've gone a bit year in Provence.
Yeah, they've changed, haven't they?
Down at the Nick.
Yeah. I thought they'd want kettle crisps. Isn't that their new thing? I've got back into crisp sandwiches. Just like, do you ever eat a crisp sandwich? Oh, I'll tell you what, it's like being one of the great predators, because it's like eating something with a skeleton. 'Cause it's like squidgy on the outside.
It's so not
and
like eating something with a skeleton.
Yeah, because suddenly there's a surprising crunch that you've sort of forgotten about in the middle. I love it. It's the reverse of a soft centre. If you can imagine anything so radical. I like it said that the police didn't want a normal bread wholemeal sandwiches, but they weren't very keen on those. I think it's in the same way that the baguette reminds them of a baton.
Yeah.
The square wholemeal sandwich reminds them of the brown envelope.
Oh,
in
stuffed
the
with ham.
in the police bribery.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think
they
it was Dixon the dog green who said no one likes a bent copper.
Well, it had to comply with anti-bribery laws, the sandwich tender, it says. Anti-discrimination and you can't have a discriminatory or bribing sandwich.
Oh, you'd be frightened to ask what bread to ask for. Do you want brown or white? I don't mind. To me, they're equally nice in every aspect. Oh, it's a PC nightmare in so many ways.
Frank Skinner. Frank Skinner. Absolute Radio.
We've had some texts in, Frank, about nightmare school trips, which we were talking about.
Yes.
We've had 019 nightmare school trips. We had a boy get bitten on the elbow by an angry pig.
Oh dear, that sounds really painful.
Pigs are vicious.
And from the same
and
person,
elbows are sensitive. You put those two together, you've got pain.
The Venn diagram of that.
on a French trip, 2 girls missed the coach home and were stranded in Calais.
What, and left?
I presume that someone went back to fetch them.
Stranded forever. They now run a lovely bistro.
Times have changed. That'd be a massive story, a massive health and safety. Then they were just left.
Yeah, they were just left there.
They
didn't
became
make-
street urchins.
Mr. Wilcox said if he weren't back on the coach by 3:15, that was it.
Yeah.
And no bots.
You get your own way back. Knife lesson. Kids these days.
And there's another text from 394. We took our school kids to a local funeral home and they were given balloons. We took our school kids. Sounds like it might be a headmaster of some sort.
We took our school
They were
kids.
given you wouldn't think a funeral home had balloons.
Well, they had to give them something.
Black
what else would
balloons,
they give them?
do you think?
Would they give them what? Brass coffin handles? I mean, what would you give the kids that have come to look round it?
I imagine you give them, like, tiny coffin-shaped erasers.
A jumbo pencil.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, black balloons.
Oh, somber.
Rather chic. Frank, we were also talking about...
Well, I wouldn't go so far. Yeah.
about sandwiches.
Yes, we were.
Which, I mean, I fear that subject somewhat, as you can imagine.
Well, I know there's a carbohydrate element.
Exactly. But I did reconnect with my old friend Bread last week.
Oh, yes.
And I went over to Frank's. It was lovely, actually. And he said, "Oh, do you fancy a toasty?" Now, normally an alarm goes off when someone says that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The smoke alarm, about 10 minutes later.
I said, "Oh, I fancy one of those. Do you know, I'm
'Cause it
going to
was
have a
wintry.
cheese toasty." Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
So I slapped it on the George. You know, the
George Foreman.
The George Foreman, yeah. I slapped it on the George Foreman. And
Kathy and Sandy Mason weren't allowed any food. Frank was very clear about that. He said, "No, we've been doing these hours. We need to have something to eat now."
I said, we got back after doing the show. We got back about 11:30, and my argument was that we need a brunch at that point.
Like miners we were.
And they seemed to think I was going to do toasties for everyone.
Yeah.
Who eats at 11:30 unless they've been doing a breakfast radio show? So no,
fair
I dug my heels
You've got
in.
to earn your food, women.
Yeah. So, I tell you what happens. I don't know if you
totalitarian rule,
noticed
you
this, but sometimes it can be very fierce, a George Foreman, and the cheese had slightly run off the sandwich, and I had to scoop it back onto the. I don't know if you noticed
I
that.
didn't even notice.
No, did you
you
notice a hint of corrugation in some of the cheese? That's because it had come off the Foreman grooves.
I loved it so much. It was almost quite a Proustian experience for
Proustian?
me.
Oh.
Yeah. I found I shed a tear.
À la recherche du
Yes.
sandwich perdu.
Yes.
Yeah.
I shed
Well, fondue.
I shed a tear of nostalgia for bread.
Yeah.
I did.
When did you last eat bread?
Oh, when did you last see your mother?
I felt you should have been wearing a blue velvet catsuit for that question. When did you last see your mother's pride? It's
Oh, that's such a fine joke. I have to just let it sink in.
but no, she's a stranger to carbohydrates.
When did you turn
Not
your back?
anymore.
When did you turn your back on bread?
No, do you know what? Bread's becoming back in vogue. Too many Towie types, that's the only way as Essex, have adopted this no carbs rule. It's getting too popular now. So bread's getting back in
Doesn't
vogue.
it turn you into a crazy person if you don't eat carbs?
Well, I
I
met
don't
someone.
know what you mean.
I met someone on the Ducan the other day, and not the dock shoot, the Ducan, and their breath. It didn't sound like they. It smelled like instead of
Ducant.
that they were living on dog excrement. They were on the dog excrement diet. Perhaps that's what the D
They read
stands
it wrong.
for. Yeah, perhaps, I think that is what French Ducan means in French, isn't it? It's dog excrement.
No, it doesn't.
Dog do. The dog do can is that what we call the poop bin. The poop bin? Does anyone call it that? Well, I do, apparently. First I heard of it. I've been back on the all bran, as you may know. And it's trouble with all bran. If you look at all bran, it's clearly from the same family as the twiglet. And I think all bran is the sort of solid, dependable side of the family, and the twiglet is the sort of a flimsy, fly-by-night one. And funnily enough, a bloke was telling me this week, a mate of his, when he had a mullet haircut in the 80s, he used to say the front meant business and the back meant party. Fabulous hair summary.
Absolute Radio. Frank Skinner.
Hey, this is Frank Skinner, and I'm with Emily Dean and Laura Solon.
One boy,
It just gets better every time.
two little girls.
Good old Elvis. If you want to text us about anything, we're on 8, 12, 15. But then again, who isn't? A lot of people, actually. I couldn't think of it.
Can I talk about one of my favourite actors, Alec Baldwin?
You can.
I do, on the side issue, I do think if I went for lunch with him, I'd get on really well with him.
With Alec Baldwin?
Yeah, I really
Which
like
sounds to
him.
me like he's a boorish oaf from what I've read in the papers this
yes,
week.
you might think,
It
but
sounds more up my strata. In that case.
up Emily's Strasser. He's been
A
thrown
novel
off.
by Beryl Bain.
He's been thrown off a flight, allegedly for playing. Well, he's been thrown off the flight, but
I don't think you have to say allegedly.
But for playing an iPhone game.
Yes, I hadn't heard of this game before. Was it
Words with
I have.
friends. Words with friends.
It's called Words with Friends, and some of my celebrity friends...
You say words, friends.
Some of your celebrity
No,
friends.
my application is called Words with Celebrity Friends.
Words with
okay.
better people.
Yeah. But no, what they do is they send it to you and they want you to get involved.
And he did get involved. It's
It's like online Scrabble, Frank, yeah?
It would be better if it had been called Words, Friends. You had to join the dots and make a fabulous portrait of Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
well, the second report, another website said that he got kicked off the flight when the actor slammed the bathroom door so loudly the captain had to get involved.
Well, he shouldn't
When
have
the
done
captain
that.
gets involved, and he's
No, but what if someone had been making a souffle in that toilet? That would have ruined it.
well, there'd be nesting birds.
Oh, I don't like loud noises on planes, I
No.
must say. If somebody slammed the
Bangs.
door like that,
But
I'd be-
it wasn't taking off. It was obviously
No, but even so.
He has had previous...
He's got form.
Just using my prison speak there.
he's got form.
But he has got form, hasn't he, old Alec?
Well, he shouted at his daughter once on a voicemail message.
That don't make him a bad person, does it?
No, he called her a thoughtless little pig, and then he apparently
She didn't bite a young person.
not on the elbow. That's why he was cross with her.
Well, she did. She overstepped the mark.
Yeah, but he wrote a book inspired by the incident. I don't know what the book is.
What do you
it doesn't
mean?
Say. He says it says here he later apologised and wrote a book inspired by the incident. I don't know if it was called a children's book called The Thoughtless Little Pig, or maybe it was more The Thoughtless Dad. I don't know.
He called his daughter Thoughtless Little Pig and then wrote
a book about it, inspired by it.
Well, I'd like to look into that book.
I don't know if it's true.
So
Perhaps we could have regular readings from it on the show.
But
If ever anyone spuns, it's like candy floss. 1 spoon of sugar makes an enormous mass of pink candy floss. One tiny incident, he got
Yeah.
a book out of it.
Yeah, well,
I'm going off him.
he did... it did all end in tears, though, didn't it? So he got chucked off.
yeah, Publix drop, really.
It was American Airlines, though, and I was once on American Airlines with... My girlfriend of the time was a vegetarian, and she said to the air stewardess, she said, they brought chicken and chicken, potatoes, peas. And she said, excuse me, I ordered the vegetarian meal. She said, don't eat the chicken, honey. And that's not good, is it?
No, that's
and
not customer
she made a
service.
terrible error because she was American, my girlfriend, and she was the most avid complainer I've ever
They're good
known.
at it.
She was, I know, but she was amazing. We once was in a hotel and she complained about the meal of a woman on an adjoining table.
Backseat complaining.
She'd heard us say that something was tough or something, and she said, you should complain. The woman said, oh, no, it's fine. So when the waiter went past, she said, excuse me, but this lady's meat. And this woman was dragged into a whole massive, took the meat away and brought it. Oh, dear, it's unbelievable.
Well, Alec Baldwin thinks that American Airlines is where retired Catholic school gym teachers from the 50s find jobs as flight attendants.
Well, there's a hint of anti-Catholicism.
Yeah,
Baldwin.
he should be made to sit at that priest hole that we
Yeah,
went
in
to.
Harvington
Think
Hall,
about
that would do him good. Yeah, he's referring to the... does he mean that she was a bit older?
I think he's referring to maybe a stern, matriarchal figure.
Yeah.
No nonsense.
Sort of zero
governess,
tolerance approach.
Who said, stop playing on your iPhone and slamming the bathroom door, sit down.
In other
Alec
words,
Baldwin.
someone who didn't say, oh, Mr. Baldwin, I
Yeah.
think you're an absolute genius. Yes, of course you can play any game, even though it does interfere with the instruments.
Which is what I would have said, clearly.
Does it?
Celebrities can... No, if it did, you wouldn't be allowed them on flights.
Now, can I ask, does it interfere with the instruments?
I can't believe it definitely does, because they don't check very thoroughly
What, whether it's on or not?
whether everyone's turned theirs off.
It just doesn't
We need to
sound...
talk to the cockerel. He's the airport settings.
I'm sure it might
No,
do.
but you know, our listeners are like a fabulous living, breathing Google. Someone will know whether it affects the
There must be a
instruments.
small possibility that it will, but if it was very dangerous, you wouldn't be allowed them on. If you're not allowed nail scissors, you wouldn't be allowed iPhone.
We've actually had a plane-related query. I once got into trouble for smoking an electronic cigarette on a plane. The reason given was that another passenger complained it looked like the real thing. I would like to ask the panel if they think this is fair. Thanks, Gordon.
No, that's...
I like the panel.
That's completely unfair. I once travelled to Kansas with an inflatable doll in the adjoining seat. And I got a similar complaint. The fact is, I get insecure in the air. Anyway, I'd love to know if any of our listeners have had a public strop, because there's nothing quite like one, let's face it. I once had a public strop when I was at public school, with a strop. And, oh yeah, the other fags thought it was absolutely hilarious. When I say the other fags, I'll explain.
Absolute Radio with Frank Skinner.
Frank, we've had some updates on whether mobile phones do interfere when you're flying. 540, it absolutely does not affect instruments. Thus, we are now allowed to use phones in hospitals.
Oh.
That's 540's. The opinions
What
of
about if you're the
540
flying
not me.
doctor? What about, I was once, I was doing an interview once in a car, on the phone interview, and, I mean, not for a job, with a newspaper. And I got out at a garage, and a loudspeaker voice said, "Sir, switch off your mobile
It
phone."
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How humiliating.
exactly. And apparently you can get a spark
Yeah.
what comes off of your phone and sets the petrol pump on
I don't
fire.
believe
Is this
that.
one of these rumours that started when mobile phones came out that's just been kept?
Have you ever seen a spark come off a mobile phone?
No, but it's like the same way that you're meant to nudge a fruit machine with an electric
I
lighter.
have actually
haven't
seen
you?
a member of the Sparks come off a mobile phone.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I was once in a tobacconist and a man came in and said, "Have you got any flints for a mobile phone?" For my Zippo mobile. I've just never heard such talk. A spark off your mobile phone.
So, Frank, I'd like to go nativity here on you.
Oh,
There's some rather surprising news out this week. Obviously, it's the season for nativity
it
plays.
certainly is.
For those who remember to have children. And apparently, Joseph and Mary, which you would say traditionally have always the most coveted roles,
Yeah.
one would assume,
Yes.
in the goodies.
Oh, God, yeah.
The
And-
leads.
But in hindsight, they did a survey, and most people would actually rather play. It said it referred to him as the evil innkeeper.
Why is he evil?
Or Herod.
It's not evil.
He's not even just a very good hotelier because he
He found additional accommodation.
doesn't have any spare rooms,
Yeah.
but he makes
Exactly.
an effort for them.
Like all hoteliers,
improvised.
he's a slave to availability.
They didn't book in advance. They turn up.
You can't
One of
create
the
a room
busiest-
out of nothing.
One of the busiest nights of the year, and we want a room because she's pregnant.
You get these people at reception. I hear people saying, well, you must have at least one room.
Well, no, we've got a finite number of rooms.
The idea that I would say I don't have any rooms if I've got at least one room somewhere.
We're not Jesus. And she went,
Oh, well, they weren't well, she was sort of slightly
Particularly
Jesus.
during a national census time. We know how busy hotels get around that time.
It's like booking a hotel in the Olympics on the day of the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
Have you got a room? No.
Do you think
the
he
evil
said,
innkeeper.
It's absolutely crammed. It's the birth of Jesus this week. They've come from all over. There's 3 blokes turned up here earlier trying to get a room they were prepared to share.
Funny aftershave they're wearing.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, No, they described him in the Telegraph, the innkeeper, as one of the darker good time characters.
What?
Where was it good time? It was working on Christmas night.
He's just answering the door and saying, I've got no room left because it's full to capacity. There's fire regulations.
But there's nothing good time about somebody working all through the
It's got a
holidays.
business.
Gave them a bit of old straw. I've slept on worse, I tell you.
Yeah, well,
Were you in the nativity play, Frank?
can I say I had one of my most traumatic experiences of my entire life in a nativity play.
Oh, no.
I was head shepherd. And not Ed Shepherd,
No.
who sounds like somebody who reads the local news.
I was news reporter Ed Shepherd reporting on the birth of Christ.
No, I was head shepherd, and the Miss Knight, the headmistress, said, but these Miss, I wish her middle name had been you, because these Miss Unites. Now, Miss Knight said, right, gather around the baby Jesus. Well, I was the head shepherd, so they were following me. Well, the baby Jesus hadn't been placed in the manger at that point. He was in a crisp box at the back of the stage. So I went and knelt at the crisp box, and my other shepherds knelt with me. She went absolutely ballistic. I mean, she went crazy. It was a simple mistake. I was following orders.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Literal child.
Yeah, but there was the baby Jesus, you know. And
Was it a doll?
it was a doll, yeah. It wasn't the real baby. They wouldn't
Remember,
have put-
sometimes it was just swaddled.
No,
swaddled
this was a doll
clothing.
with a hint of cheese and onion. But anyway, she came on stage and she grabbed me by my ankle and then raised her hand
didn't.
up, and I swung upside down. And this is a bit of a
Strong
difficult thing to I was tiny. I was only like 5, and I swung round and my hand went right up her skirt, and it was. I can't tell you. I felt strange tremors go through me, as if I'd met, like I imagine when they opened Tutankhamun's tomb, and the smell of the ancients rose up. But I really felt like I'd done something bad, because at that age I wasn't
Well,
quite
you
sure what it
had.
was. Yeah, but I was a victim of gravity.
It's not an extenuating circumstance.
No, it's good that I was one of the few kids ever to put his hand up the headmistress's skirt and use Newton's laws as no, but she was being horrible to me, and it all happened next. But honestly, it really traumatised me, and I still, when I think about it now, though it might sound comical to the outsider, I was shaken to the very core.
Oh, Frank.
So, whereas good time boy, the innkeeper.
That's
was,
the kind of thing that you'd imagine going on in his inn.
Yeah, he was partying in an adjoining building.
Absolute Radio with Frank Skinner.
Frank, we've just had a text in. You were asking about using a mobile phone at a petrol pump, and apparently there'd actually been an announcement made telling you to get to please cease and desist. Frank, as a fireman, I can tell you that you're right about mobiles and petrol pumps. It will not cause fire. 'Tis a myth. Would need a large volume of contained flammable gas to be a risk. Reason is the distraction factor, more likely to overfill, spill, or put in the wrong fuel type. That's from
I
Palmer
see.
and Dartford.
But I wasn't actually. I was just standing there. I wasn't actually doing the tube thing.
Which makes me think
The
they've
rubber
been a
tube
little
thing.
heavy-handed, and they owe you an apology.
They went over the top. I can't remember quite where it was now, the garage. You know, we just stopped.
Treating you like some good time innkeeper.
I think I just stopped for a crunchy. Yeah, the good time innkeeper, of course.
Talking of the good time innkeeper, can I just ask you, as someone, I'd say almost of the cloth, knowledgeable in these affairs, King Herod, is that entirely appropriate to have him in a children's play? What's his role? I mean, do they feature the Massacre of the Innocents in the play?
Well, they might have I don't know if they have the actual massacre, but they might well have included the edict. I think that what they're probably cut to Herod.
Oh.
And,
Interior, Herod's chamber.
Tonight,
had him saying, "Find that child," and I'll have him destroyed. In fact, if I remember rightly, and I often don't, when I was in the Fen Street Nativity play, which is a drama when we all played children, there was me and Mark Addy.
Oh yeah,
was in it, if you remember him, and lots of stars of the day, Neil Morrissey, etc. And I played King Herod, if I looking back.
Did you play?
Yeah.
I don't remember Herod being a feature of my nativity play.
No, well, I think he's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more of an annex.
Needs to be played by Alan Rickman, not by a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I don't think we could have got him. Not even for the Fen Street Nativity play. It was BBC Wales.
But can I just say, I'm rather envious of all you guys, because I didn't really get to have a nativity, because I went to a very...
You've already mentioned that.
No, but a very trendy sort of 70s liberal school.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a drama teacher, and he wore denim waistcoat and smoked Peter Stuyvesant.
Of course he did.
Denim waistcoat? Did he used to co-present Tiswas?
Was it cut off at
No,
the
he had it
sleeves?
hanging loose. He had it hanging
Had he
loose.
cut
Did he?
off a denim jacket?
I think he had.
Yeah.
He sounds like... If Top Cat was in Status Quo,
Yeah.
that's
And
what
we
he would
called
wear.
him, he said, call me Bob, kids.
Was his name Bob?
Oh,
Don't call me Mr.
Yeah.
Williams.
Yeah.
Oh, I've named him.
That's unbelievable.
Bob?
Bob Williams. Bob the Waistcoat Williams,
Yeah.
as he was known locally.
Bob abandoned the traditional nativity play. It must have been about 8, 9? 9 it must have been. And in favour of a play he'd penned himself about
Oh,
the
dear.
nuclear holocaust.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
Had it been
no.
turned down by an afternoon play by Radio 4?
I was-
Had the National spurned
I
him?
tell you what it's like, it's the drummer's parents.
Yeah.
You know when you get the boy drummer on a talent show and the parents are on bass and lead,
Yeah.
and the judges say, lose the parents, and the kid says, okay. It's that moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no, he's
I played
What was it
Survivor
called?
3.
But you-
Survivor 3, yes.
What was your line?
Oh no, I didn't get as far as lines really.
you-
We had to, at least I wasn't a victim. They cried, the people who were victims.
I bet
Was
they
he
did.
the lead?
In a way, you're all victims.
Did
You're
he,
all victims of Bob the Waistcoat Williams' ego.
did he
We
play
had
the
to show the
lead?
effects of radiation.
Oh, dear.
I know.
With what?
It was awful.
Tea towels on head?
A lot of
Oh dear. Oh, it sounds awful.
sounds amazing.
Well, all the children were crying, not me, Ice Woman. Got through it with the professionalism I still hold to this day.
Well, I played Judge Danforth in The Crucible in my school
Oh, did
play.
you?
And Judge Danforth he's the judge at the trial when it's like the witch trials, and Tony Hale was one of the witnesses, and he got complete stage fright. I mean, terror. And I said to him, "So, sir, tell me what you seen that day." And he just looked at me in terror, and I said, "As the devil got your tongue." And he looked at me, and I thought, "You're not going to speak, are you?" And I said, "Come now, sir. Don't be afraid of this court. We are here to bring justice." I was by now completely improvising. He just turned and walked out the door. And I remember I had a slight panic, and then I said, "Luckily, I read the deposition of this man. I understand that he saw a number of ladies." And I started talking, and I said, one of my intentions was to ask him the following questions." It was going on. You could see no end to it.
Just do the rest of the play and all the parts.
It was getting back. It was the little man inside was thinking, "Well, I'm here now. How do I get back to the next bit?" Oh God, it was stressful looking back.
Frank Skinner. Absolute Radio.
What's wrong, sir? The devil got your tongue?
Luckily.
Yeah, completely forgotten about that incident. I I must think. I bet I did a good
good
6 or
improv.
7 or 7 of saying what he said and then saying what I would have said had he still been there.
Frank,
Well, the thing is, I looked around, remember, at the other kids in the play, and none of them met my eye. Don't bring me into this.
Frank, I'd like to clear up once and for all this. Can you have your mobile phone on at a petrol station?
Yeah, I feel we should clear that up.
/ the plane. So this chap seems to know what he's talking about. He agrees with our fireman friend.
Who is this chap?
This is Acton Wright.
Well, he sounds right.
Yes.
Is he called Acton Wright? Was he in an Oscar Wilde short story? Okay, carry on.
So the fireman was correct about the petrol pump just causing a possible distraction.
Okay, so you're all right on a forecourt.
Yeah, there's no spark.
On a plane?
For airplanes, there is a lot of equipment that uses radio signals, possibly using the same frequency. So coming into land, for example, they connect to an instrument landing system.
Oh, well.
So
If someone was playing words with friends and ruined your landing, be furious.
Well, they hadn't taken off at that point, though.
ruined your landing by ending your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before he
furious.
started his anti-Catholic souffle destroying rant. Okay, so basically they're wrong about the garages, but planes, it's common sense. Someone said you can use them in hospitals because it doesn't affect.
Yes.
I don't know what it was, the stethoscope. Obviously, if you're wearing a stethoscope. Okay, well, that's good to clear it up because we don't want anyone thinking it's all right to use it on a plane and then quoting me as an authority.
Yeah.
Imagine that. What else? We've had emails.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's an email from America. Chris.
I still get excited that people in
It's
America.
come from across the pond.
Marvellous.
Chris
from the States.
Yeah, Chris from the States. Chris
I hate
from
the
North
States.
Carolina.
I hate the
I don't hate the States, but when people say the States, I
Yeah.
write them off as human beings.
Yeah.
Chris from North Carolina has written in with another TV pun suggestion. Hey, comma, that's American. Hey, comma. Just read that a TV station in the States has just greenlighted a reality show called Hook, Line and Sisters about a family of deep-sea fishermen that includes 2 daughters.
Oh, well, is he made? Is that sounds like it's true.
Although, can I just say, a bit of an Americanism creeping in there, greenlit.
Yeah, greenlit
surely.
it should have been.
Come on.
Come on. Is this real?
But Hook, Line and Sisters.
Yeah.
What is it called? Hook, Line and
Sisters.
Yeah, I like it. What I think is that they should have had deep sea fishermen with terrible BO. Would have been the programme.
Yes,
Hook,
they
Line
could,
and Stinkers.
Or with a twitch, hook,
Or-
line and blinkers.
Yeah, or Anne Robinson learns deep sea fishing. Hook, Line and Winkers.
Absolute Radio. Frank Skinner.
Frank, I've been reading a lot about bankers this week.
Have you?
Very much so. Well, no, what intrigued
Was it on
me...
a dating website? Well, they've had a fall. They've had a terrible fall from grace. let's
Well,
face
they
it.
have. But apparently, I don't know if I'm allowed to name the bank, let's not help them.
No.
But a certain high street bank, they've decided they're going to send the bank bosses on a comedy course in an attempt
yes.
to sort of help them. They're saying drive the business forward, which sounds like a very banking phrase.
Yeah, what does that mean? To drive the business forward?
Furtherance the economic futurance of the
Yes,
bank.
it'll be something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's
I
one
was
of those away
disappointed-
days.
I was disappointed with the headline.
What was it?
It was something like what was it?
I'll
I
find
can't
it
remember.
for
It was very dull. Like
Bankers are having a laugh.
bankers are
It's not
having a
even
laugh.
really a pun.
Rubbish. They could have had laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Oh, they could have.
Or they could have had, I thought, joke tellers.
Oh, that's good, Frank.
I
That's
thought that
good.
sometimes they're a bit lazy on their
Yeah.
comedy headlines. I was disappointed.
they're
Which
not doing
reminds
this
me,
for-
I wanted to do a comedy tour with me and 2 other comics called The Three Tellers, right, in which we
Oh,
told
yeah.
jokes. And I thought it's a great idea because you do about 40 minutes each, so you don't have to write massive amounts. 3 of us, 3 acts for the price of 1, bit of company on tour. Every comedian I suggested it to just turned the nose up. What about that?
I don't know what to say.
No, I ended up with Shane Ritchie and Les Dennis. Yeah. We did one night and we just abandoned the whole thing.
Well, they will be helped out on their course. Well, apparently Phil Jupitus is going to be involved.
Really?
Yeah. I hope he doesn't wear the eyeliner because he's taken to wearing eyeliner and
Yeah,
not
they
be
won't-
scared
they won't-
by that.
They won't like that at the bank,
They're quite conservative.
I'll say.
So what do you think of this as comics, you two?
Are you threatened, Frank, by these bankers? Are they what if they get really good?
Well, I was interested with the
Now
fact
you sound worried.
when they said there was a clowning module, because I don't know if you know, but I recently, I when the credit crunch came around, my bank, having given me some terrible advice, had to tell me that I may have lost all the money I had, and certainly half of it. And I thought it'd been very good if what they'd have done is they'd have suddenly run out with a safety deposit box and thrown it towards me, and it was just glitter, no money in it at all. Would have been a great way of getting it across.
They'd gone off in a tiny car and it had fallen apart.
That would have been.
Would have taken the sting out of it.
I would have felt, but if they'd have started crying, that squirty crying that comes the other side of the table.
Electrocuted your palm with one of those hand buzzers.
As they explained the fall of AIG, squirty tears shot across the desk.
Would have lightened the mood.
I don't know whether they work these. I mean, obviously, lots of
Part
businesses.
of a leadership course.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see a banker doing some stand-up comedy in a comedy club. I think it might give them an idea that there's actually customers who need to be pleased, and they can see and respond to them. But wouldn't they get more stick than any stand-up comedians ever got?
Yeah, any
Yeah, they
bankers
would.
in tonight, it would be very difficult. It would be very difficult.
I think the idea is it just sort of boosts their confidence.
Yeah,
But
they don't need confidence boosting.
Do we
I
want
don't
their
think.
confidence boosted? We can't
No,
take
we want it unboosted.
That'd be a double dip. I spoke to someone recently who'd been working with bankers, and he said to me that they said, look, it's the public have brought this on themselves. Is when we had to get rid of bank charges, we had to cut, because they said one bank cut their bank charges and got rid of bank charges. So every time you did a transaction, you used to have to pay extra bit. They said since we had to stop that, the only way we can do is by selling them dodgy deals and things. So
That's nice.
I feel you've been trapped into that.
I now I've just reversed my opinion on the note.
Yeah, exactly. They're victims.
I feel compassion.
I wish the bank would just call it dodgy deals on the website.
Yeah,
Dodgy deals.
yeah. That's the trouble. If you call a dodgy deal, it's no longer a dodgy deal. I think we'd all agree with that. So yes, I've never done an away day or anything like that. I've never really had that kind of a job. When I worked in a drop forgings, an away day meant a day when you'd got so drunk the night before you couldn't breathe. But no.
A magazine once sent us to the pub, and we just kind of got drunk and spent their money.
I don't know if
What happens?
Which is kind of what bankers do in a way. But yeah, it was it felt a bit pointless.
They do. There's a company that does simulates spies and spy training, so you can turn up somewhere in
Is that the news of the world?
somewhere in Basingstoke, and you can pretend to be James Bond. But I imagine because it's sort of done in a regional way, it might be a bit rubbish with someone doing a bit of an accent. Hello there, Mr. Bankers. Welcome to your mission objective. Debbie, go get the guns.
you like those adverts. See, those Halifax adverts when they're running a radio station.
Yeah, that's what it's like.
I love those adverts.
Training.
Yeah, well, bad luck to all the bankers. I hope you have a terrible time. So anyway, we move towards the end of the show. I bet there's some lovely bankers listening, aren't there? There must be some nice ones who aren't sort of...
They're good time. They're out having...
They are good time.
They're still out from the night before.
They are. They're very like the innkeeper in the Nativity play.
And not dissimilar to King Herod in so many ways.
No. Well, exactly. They certainly slaughtered a few of my innocents. In fact, they slaughtered my innocence, if you receive my meaning. Anyway, enough of this blather. If you'd like to download Not the Weekend podcast, it's available from Wednesday, and it's us doing similar stuff, but without the rubbish music. Mark Crossley is next, former Notts Forest goalkeeper, made good. And that's about it. If the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll be back next week at the same time. Ta-ra a bit.
Absolute Radio with Frank Skinner.